Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to Star Wars Lads for our final predictions and speculation for Skeleton Crew. This is going to be for Skeleton Crew Episode 8, directed by John Watts, the co-creator of the show and the director who directed the first episode, as well as the Spider-Man Homecoming trilogy and a variety of other films. So, obviously, a lot of talent returning to this episode, as well as the fact that it is the person who's driving the show who, has that specific direction. Always exciting to see that person return for the finale. We're going to give you everything we think is going to happen in this finale of Skeleton Crew, hopefully season 1 out of many. And then we're going to talk a little bit about all the things that we think could be left on the table, plot points that could be resolved. All that stuff is going to be covered in this week's episode. Make sure you comment your predictions down below. We always respond to all of your comments, and we like to interact with you all about the predictions for this week's episode. Join us for the final live we have going on Tuesday. It'll be immediately after the episode ends, around 7 to 7:30 Pacific time. We're going to go live, taking all of your guys' questions, comments, theories, anything you would like to discuss about Skeleton Crew as a whole, now that it will have wrapped up, as well as episode 8. So make sure you join us on our live for that and our review of the episode as well. Subscribe to the channel for more Star Wars Lads. It's not going anywhere after Skeleton Crew ends. We'll have plenty of great content, including more stuff about 2025 and into the future of the year, as well as my bookshelf tour that I do every year at the beginning of the year. So keep an eye out on the channel for all that great stuff. All right, let's get into our predictions for the finale of Skeleton Crew. Skeleton Crew, the last 2 episodes, I think both for you and I, disappointingly, have been shorter episodes, which has been a bummer considering everything's starting to come to a head. We've gotten back to At-Atten finally in the last episode, but amongst that, the content has still been pretty solid. It's just been a little bit more sparse in terms of its emotional weight and kind of the details around some of the lore and specifics around the plot points that are going on, but the plot points are still there. They're still moving. And in the last episode, we had Jod make his way to the vault, one of 1,139 vaults on At-Atten that contain Old Republic credits. And then, as the episode ends, surprisingly, the parents, even though they were captured by droids, show up randomly to help the kids, and they all give each other hugs, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're all together again." And then Jod walks up to them all, Anakin style, in Order 66, and turns on his lightsaber, and that's the cliffhanger we have leading into next episode. So, with that in mind, Sanak, and all the different plot points that we feel need to be wrapped up in this episode, what do you think is going to happen in episode 8?
Well, we're gonna have to start off with what's happening on that bridge, right? It's a crazy shot to parallel to Revenge of the Sith for sure. I think Neil's mom's handling it a little bit better than the youngling did, but yeah, it's gonna be very interesting because I do think that right now we still have Jod with the upper hand with the droids and what kind of like how he's been demanding and pushing them around. And I would like to see maybe him try to spin it as like, okay, this is now Jedi business. Actually, I'm not just an emissary. I'm a Jedi who's joined the emissary task force, kind of coming in and checking on the mint. Clearly, he can't bring his ship down quite yet, but I wonder if he starts threatening the family. If there like some Jedi tricks or diplomacy doesn't work on the droids, he'll be like, all right, well, I'm just going to start taking names and numbers, right? At this point, I want to say that he's going to just go out as a villain. And even if we have like a sympathetic angle for him, get a little bit of his origin, I actually don't mind it. I like that we were all expecting, like, of course he's going to return and be good. Of course he's going to turn out to be someone that has some roguish charm because it has underneath all of it, a good golden heart of character and well-being, and it's just the situations that have shaped him are what's stopping him from really making the connections and the good positive things that he needs for himself. At this point, I don't know, man. He's really pushed everything in that last episode quite a bit fast to a point of no return. So if it still happens, it's got to be a longer episode, 45 minutes to 50 minutes. I don't see that happening per se. I do think maybe we get a 40-minute episode out of it. So yeah, start off with all that like kind of Jedi angle, Jedi business. We know for sure that Atten kind of at least has the robots program its citizens, and all their education includes stuff about the Jedi. So maybe he's making a lucky guess here and thinking, okay, well, I've heard this whim kid blabber on about all these Jedi fables and heroes and powers and all that, but I actually can play the part here. So I do wonder if he's going to be able to supersede some of the mandates, some of the programming that so far has been resistant to him bringing down the rest of the pirates. So that I think will be pretty cool, and I think that's going to be a pretty fun angle for Jod to start off with that. But we know in other promo shots and all that, like we're gonna see Wim and his father when they'll kind of go out together and go on the speeder bike. So it's gonna start spreading out, and there are several depths down to the ground. So how do you transition from the mines that are all around that Jod clearly wants to keep his eye on and bring his crew to him, but then allow these parents to escape? I mean, they could theoretically just take a repulsor lift or something, but I think this is maybe a good segue into like getting the supervisor to come down, or at least is voiced a la like a Wizard of Oz, where he's communicating with Jod with some hologram or some big effect for eventually maybe the episode does come to reveal who he is. And maybe Jod doesn't really get to interact with the actual supervisor, but he gets to interact with the mask that he puts on, the one that's going to be built into the system with the droids and all that. So I expect that to be something that distracts him. I expect the supervisor to program the droids or tell them, oh, all right, let them go, like take these kids up and their families up. All right, I'll deal with the official business here with our emissary and all that. And maybe it's all just a big ruse because the supervisor is quite alive and he's not just some remnants of some robot hive mind that's been maintaining stuff for hundreds of years, like Jod kind of implies this planet for being hidden for that long. So I expect that to be how we kind of separate the groups away. And I think that's what's going to let all the kids and the parents work together. I think there's going to be, at this point, maybe more exposition dumps from the parents about what Atten's like, what are some places we can go to, what are some resources. I would honestly love to see one of the droids kind of become like a protocol-esque droid and kind of help them out, give them information that they need, give them access to different buildings. Maybe we get to see some of the suburbia transform into like, okay, this is how we can do like some trench warfare. This is how we kind of hide away some things. These are some convertible locations before this eventual oncoming assault by the pirates once they take the mines, and they won't actually be able to get all the access, right? Once they're going to have to take things into their own hands and make a big mess of things. So I think they're going to start preparing all that stuff, kind of set the groundwork. And then once the pirates arrive, once Jod's been able to at least believe that he's tricked the supervisor to bring down his pirate crew, and then the mines are closed in his face, then he starts his whole attack, tries to say, if I'm not gonna get this money, I'm gonna force the hand with the citizens. The pirates all try to do something, but at this point the kids and the droids are all prepared, and I think we get to see some really fun adventures, shots with the Onyx Cinder kind of applying as support, especially with this revitalized version. I hope that maybe that the supervisor has some access codes or something that can open up some new systems, some things that have been hidden away that even the kids don't know after kind of stripping it down to like the ship that is used for the mint. Love to see some stuff to connect to the High Republic, to the Old Republic, in that sense, that, you know, fans of KOTOR, fans of the High Republic media can kind of reference and be like, oh, I remember seeing that, or I've heard about that. So I think that'll be some pretty cool ways to get some big action in the sky and on the ground. And then, yeah, I expect Jod to be captured, and that's when the New Republic shows up. I think finally the supervisor reveals that, hey, you know what? We can't keep this facade up anymore. We've been trying to keep everything isolated. It's worked out for so long that it didn't really make any sense for us to reach out anywhere else. But with this kind of opening up a huge rabbit hole for us, like it's better to get help, and the necessary help that we need. So I expect the New Republic to finally step in, finally make their case to bring in Atten to the New Republic, or at least under their supervision or protection at this point. But in the case that everybody, including the supervisor, is unaware that the Republic has fallen into an empire and then been reborn as a New Republic, maybe they just use some old access codes, and then the New Republic's had them, and they've got old droids kind of like they have in the old 2020 Star Wars comics, and just that informs the New Republic like, hey, these are people who are pre-empire. We should probably help them if they're going to be using these codes. Some things have all kind of matched up in the area, and then that's how the X-Wings come. And maybe we get a fun legacy character, like maybe a Leia or a Han or a Lando or a Mon Mothma, or someone to kind of pop in here alongside the X-Wing pilots to formally get us into the Mandoverse connection. So I think that's kind of how the show will end. I don't think it's going to be super explosive, but I think it's going to be a fun, sweet ride.
Yeah, I expect this show to wrap up fairly neatly. We have no guarantee for a season 2, although they have been, with the positive word of mouth, kind of hinting at a strong possibility there is a season 2, or at least a future for these characters and kind of this story in the rest of the storytelling they're doing around the New Republic era of this time. And I do expect fully to see some connection to the rest of the era. All we've gotten really are some expository scenes for the kids so that they know that things have changed since the history they've learned on Atten, as well as a couple shots of X-Wings, but we've really not gotten personal with these X-Wings. They've mostly been far away. Had the one scene with Kim and the X-Wing pilot that we don't know. So overall, I do expect the New Republic to enter the picture at some point in this show. I do think the show starts out with Jod in the upper hand for, I think, a good bit. I would say 7 to 10 minutes of him being fully dominant in the show. And I do think we come face to face with the Supervisor here. I think it's going to be a partial Wizard of Oz situation, but not a full Wizard of Oz situation. We know Stephen Fry, the comedic British actor, is the one who voiced the Supervisor in the previous episode. Not sure if he's going to appear in live action or maybe as the voice of an alien or the voice of another droid. He could be anything involved with that, or he could just not be in it and he was just the voice for a voiceover. But if we're going off of that, I could see him showing up. He's an older gentleman, so that means, the Supervisor is a little bit aged, kind of like the Wizard of Oz in the Wizard of Oz. So I think he could be kind of hiding behind his robotic power, hiding behind the prowess and the riches and the fortune of Atten, when really he's not a person who's physically dominant as a kind of a dictatorial leader that we see with Atten. Kind of the droids, nobody's really suppressed on Atten, but the droids do keep a pretty firm hand and a tight ship on what everybody's supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it and how they're supposed to keep up production on this planet and really make everybody useful in a way. And I expect some of those rules to be bent. I expect the parents to kind of have new perspectives by the end of the show. I expect the people of Atten to kind of realize they've been living a lie for so long. And I think a lot of that will come into play. I don't think the Supervisor will be 100% a good guy in a similar way to the Wizard of Oz. I think he will be somebody who is, morally conflicted. He has been lying to all these people. I'm sure he knows a little bit more about what's out there than the rest of them do. And maybe he has had communications with the governments, the Empire, the New Republic, and that's how we kind of get it. Maybe he has some way to contact them past the barrier. If not, and if he refuses to do that, I think we see, the skeleton crew and the parents attempt to gain that access to call for help, because I fully expect the pirates to show up on Atten in some fashion, whether it's Jod taking advantage of the Supervisor and the codes and somehow getting the pirate ship through, whether he somehow hacks the droids or something, sends them up to escort the pirates. In some way, I think the pirates come and they start to plunder the planet. There's no way Jod just takes a little bit of the money from one of the 1,139 vaults. He's going to go after all of it. He's going to go after power in this planet. So whatever it takes to get there, he doesn't trust the pirates. And I think there will be some type of conflict there with the pirates that remain and Jod. But Jod, we've seen in this last episode especially, he's gone from not just pirate with a heart of gold that he seemed like prior, but he's gone from somebody who just seemed like he was looking for the next big score, i.e. like a Jack Sparrow, somebody who kind of flounders his way into something big, to somebody who's actually fully desperate and like it's all he cares about is finally living up to the name that he's been, or the names he's been creating for himself, the legend he's tried to create for himself forever. His whole life, he's never been able to live up to it. He's been mutinied, he's been beaten, he's been robbed, and now he has finally hit the treasure of a lifetime. And what does he do to protect it? I think he's at the point of full desperation. There's no going back for him. I fully expect him to be a villain in this episode. And I think the only way he does anything to help the kids or the parents is if it benefits him to get the money. So I expect him to go full villain. I agree with you, though. I think somebody as big as Jude Law, I think it would be a shame to let him die in this show. I would like to see him captured so that he could come up in other things, similar to a lot of superheroes or super villains we've seen in the MCU or in comics or the like. He could return as a hero at some point or an anti-hero down the line. it's not going to be in this show. And I think that's a good place for him, somewhere in like that Loki realm where he can just be a full villain at the start and slowly change, because Jude Law has the charisma to make us buy that as we progress into the events. And I think that would be a worthwhile plot point for season 2, is if the Skeleton Crew needed something and only Jod knew where it was or knew how to get it, and they have to reluctantly work with him. That would be something pretty traditional that they could go with for a second season or future stories. And I would just love the pirate angle to keep coming back into the New Republic era. It's such a huge part of Legends, pirates, smugglers, the underworld, and it really should be a big part of this era in canon as well, because of the upheaval of the Empire. Everything's left up in the air. We really should have a rise of the underworld, and I think pirates are a good place to go with that. So I fully expect him to live but stay a villain, and I think overall we're going to have a fairly neat, happy ending. The New Republic is going to come help. I don't really expect anybody huge in terms of cameo. I think the biggest would be somebody from like Ahsoka, like a Hera or somebody like that. But I think we'll get a Carson Teva or a Zeb or somebody else who is more of a minor character, but somebody we'd all recognize, somebody they can put in the promotional poster for the last episode, and something that actually ties this to the New Republic era, because they don't need to make this New Republic era. We've heard and rumors that these characters might show up in future things in the New Republic era outside of just Skeleton Crew. So in order to make them important, I think Atten needs to fully become a part of the New Republic, or at least a piece out there for Thrawn to go after if we wanted to tie to that story, because he needs the money, or he needs some of the resources that are hidden on such an ancient but highly advanced society like Atten. So those are our thoughts about the last episode of Skeleton Crew. What do you guys think? Let us know your predictions in the comments below. Make sure you like the video. It helps out our channel immensely. And subscribe for more. Join us for our last live covering episode 8 on Tuesday. And make sure you stay tuned with Star Wars Lads for all the great content that is moving forward after Skeleton Crew is over. We have a couple months in between Skeleton Crew ending and Andor Season 2 beginning. We're planning on giving you guys a lot of awesome, great original content in between those months as well. Thank you so much for watching this video, everybody, and we will see you all next time.